So in the previous video, I talked about XML namespaces. In this video, I will be showing you a couple of examples how XML namespaces are used, and I will be actually showing you a demonstration to see them in action. The first example is going to be XSLT. If you don't know much about that, that's fine. Basically, it is something that is used to present XML data, to format that data. So let's just dive in and open this menu.xml file. It's with the browser, and as you can see, it is just opening the file as a text file, not formatting it. That is just a plain XML data file. In the second stage of this project, now if we open this file through browser, you see the same data is being very well formatted, and this is achieved through the XSL file. The XSL file is actually doing all this formatting. So if we open this, if we open the XML file, this is the line where it actually references the XSL file to do the formatting. The rest of the file is the same. If we open this XSL file, we see this is where we see the namespace for the first time. This namespace, it is defining this namespace, and then if we click here, and there are two there are two nodes in this file for each and value of, and they are used to iterate through the XML data files. You don't need to know too much about this, but just understand that these nodes are used to iterate through the XML data files. So the key here is that when this data is being processed by the XSLT engine, it is expecting that engine knows about for each and value of elements, and it knows that these elements should belong to this namespace, and that's why we have defined this namespace. If you make a change in this, let's say we say 1, and I save it, close it, and now we open this. So the data is not being formatted. The XSLT is broken because the namespace is not correct. If we remove this one again, save, open the browser, and now we see the data again. So again, the point is that this XSL file, when it is being processed by the XSLT engine, it is expecting these nodes, which is used to iterate the XML file, to be in this particular namespace. So if it is not in that namespace, it will not recognize these for each and value of node. So that is one example, and we will take this example to the next level in the next stage with namespaces. So let me show you what I've done here. And if you open this file, you would see the same result. The same formatting, but I've added one more thing. Let me show you that. So in this example, what I have done is, in the previous example, in the XML data file, there was no namespace. Here, I have defined a namespace for the XML data file as well. So what this means is now that I have this food element, name element, price, etc. Basically this, because this is the default namespace, it means that all these elements are actually prefixed with this namespace. They basically exist in this namespace. So now look at the corresponding XSL file. So now here, because this XSLT file, it's doing one thing, which is iterating through the XML file, but it is also referencing those nodes as well. So let me show you. here I have defined exactly the same namespace uh, uh, over here, and over here I've actually named this as F. And how I've used them here is now whenever I am accessing the name element or the price element or the food element, I've always prefixed this with the F namespace, and that's why it is actually working fine. Because if I remove the, let's say I remove the name, so now what would happen is that it knows about the name, but it is not in the correct namespace anymore, so it will not recognize this name. Let's close this. Let's open. So now you see there, you see the price, but that name thing is gone. So the formatting is it is formatting the stuff that it knows about, but the name part is gone. Let's reverse this changes. Save, refresh, and now it shows the name correctly as well. Again, the reason being that here we are prefixing the name with the namespace F, and again this F can be X, Y, Z, anything. The key is that this should point to exactly the same namespace as defined here. So that is the first example. The second example is the .NET assembly configuration, and this is going to be a quick one. This is used to deploy a .NET assembly, and I'm just giving you a quick example. This is a test file, and again, you don't need to know what it does, but the main thing is that it is a real example, and this is a real example. So what this does is, again here, it defines this namespace, which is the default namespace, which means that the probing element is basically residing in this element. So the point of this is that when this when this XML file is being processed by the corresponding .NET engine, it recognizes these elements only because they should exist in this namespace. So the key point is that namespace basically allows you to define an element fully, and there is no ambiguity. And even if you don't have a clear naming conflict, it's still always good to define a namespace so that you just completely well define an element, and whatever external engine or software or anything else which is consuming this XML file, it exactly knows what it is expecting. And that is the key idea. And the third example that I could actually reference is the XAML, the WPF XAML thing. So the WPF XAML, I would make a separate video on that, but it's very similar. It's kind of more complex, so maybe I'll just make a different video, just a different video on it. But these are kind of the basics if you were confused about the namespaces, how they are used. So these are two real life examples just to help out. Thank you.